In a big, busy city where skyscrapers touched the clouds and people rushed around like ants, there lived a young woman who carried more weight on her shoulders than most could ever imagine. Her name wasn't important to anyone except herself and her baby boy. She was just another face in the crowd, trying to survive day by day. Life hadn't been kind to her, but she refused to give up. Every morning she woke up with one goal: to make sure her little son had food on his plate, clothes on his back, and love in his heart. This young mother worked 2 jobs because one paycheck simply wasn't enough. During the day she cleaned offices, scrubbing floors, wiping windows, and emptying trash bins while corporate employees sat comfortably at their desks, typing away on shiny laptops. At night she served tables at a diner, balancing trays of food and dodging rude customers who treated her like they were doing her a favor by tipping poorly. It was exhausting, but she didn't complain. Complaining wouldn't fill her baby's stomach or keep the electricity running in their tiny apartment. Her baby boy, Elijah, was only 6 months old, but he already seemed to understand how hard his mom worked. He rarely cried when she left for work early in the morning or came home late at night. Instead, he would smile at her with those big, innocent eyes, as if to say, "I'm here, Mommy. We'll get through this together." That smile kept her going even on the toughest days. One cold winter evening, after finishing her shift at the diner, she bundled Elijah tightly in his blanket and stepped out into the biting wind. The streets were icy and the sidewalks were slick, making every step feel like a challenge. She clutched him close to her chest, partly to shield him from the cold, and partly because holding him made her feel stronger. They walked to the nearest train station, where she hoped to catch the last train home. The train ride usually took about 30 minutes, but tonight it felt longer. The seats were mostly empty, save for a few tired-looking passengers scattered throughout the car. She found a spot near the window and sank into it, letting out a sigh of relief. For the first time all day, she allowed herself to relax, even if just for a moment. Elijah nestled against her, his warm breath tickling her neck. She kissed the top of his head softly, before leaning back and closing her eyes. She knew she shouldn't fall asleep. Not on a public train, not with her baby in her arms, but exhaustion overpowered her willpower. Her body begged for rest and her mind followed suit. Slowly, her eyelids grew heavier, and within minutes she drifted off. What happened next changed everything. As she slept, Elijah shifted slightly in her arms. His small weight tilted toward the person sitting beside her, a man dressed impeccably, in a tailored suit. His polished shoes gleamed under the dim lights of the train, and his expensive watch caught the occasional glint. To anyone else, he looked like just another businessman heading home after a long day at the office. But tonight, fate decided he'd play a different role. Unaware of what was happening, the young mother leaned closer to the stranger, her head resting gently on his shoulder. Elijah settled comfortably against him too, as though drawn to the warmth radiating from the man's presence. Neither of them stirred, neither of them noticed. And so the scene remained unchanged for several minutes, the weary mother and her baby sleeping soundly on the shoulder of a man whose life was worlds apart from theirs. When the train jolted suddenly, jerking everyone awake, the young woman's eyes snapped open. Panic surged through her veins as she realized where she was and who she was leaning on. Horrified, she pulled away immediately, clutching Elijah protectively to her chest. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she turned to face the stranger. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize." To her surprise, the man didn't look angry or annoyed. In fact, he seemed almost amused. His lips curved into a gentle smile and his piercing blue eyes softened as he met her gaze. "It's all right," he said calmly, his deep voice carrying a tone of reassurance. "You looked like you needed the rest." For a moment, she couldn't speak. This man, this well-dressed, sophisticated stranger, wasn't yelling at her or calling security. He was being kind. It was such an unfamiliar concept to her that she struggled to process it. Before she could respond, The train screeched to a halt at the next station. Passengers began filing out, their footsteps echoing in the quiet car. The man stayed seated, watching her intently as if deciding whether to say something more. Finally, he spoke again. "Are you okay? You seem tired." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. Of course she was tired. She was always tired. But hearing someone acknowledge it aloud made her want to cry. She forced herself to nod, unwilling to show weakness in front of a stranger. "We're fine," she lied, her voice wavering slightly. "Thank you." But the man didn't believe her. There was something in her expression and the way she held her baby so tightly that told him otherwise. As the train started moving again, he glanced at her once more before returning to his phone. Yet his thoughts lingered on the young mother and her child. Something about them tugged at his heartstrings, stirring memories of his own difficult past. The young mother couldn't shake off the memory of what had happened on the train. Even after she got home, tucked Elijah into his crib, and collapsed onto the worn-out couch in their tiny apartment, her mind kept replaying the moment she woke up leaning on that stranger's shoulder. She felt a mix of emotions: embarrassment for falling asleep so carelessly, gratitude for his unexpected kindness, and confusion about why someone like him would react so calmly to a situation like that. She didn't know who he was or why he'd been so understanding. In her experience, people rarely showed compassion without expecting something in return. The world she lived in was harsh, and most folks were too busy worrying about themselves to notice anyone else. But this man, there was something different about him, something genuine. Still, she tried to push the incident out of her mind. Life didn't leave much room for dwelling on things you couldn't control. There were bills to pay, diapers to buy, and another long day ahead of her tomorrow. So she brushed it off as just one of those strange moments life throws at you sometimes, a fleeting encounter with no real significance. But fate had other plans. A few days later, as she returned from yet another grueling shift at the diner, she noticed a black luxury car parked outside her building. At first, she thought nothing of it. Rich people often visited the nicer apartments nearby. But then she saw him, the same man from the train, standing near the entrance of her building, scrolling through his phone. Her heart skipped a beat. What was he doing here? Was he looking for her? She hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach him or slip inside unnoticed. Before she could decide, he looked up and spotted her. Their eyes met, and she froze like a deer caught in headlights. "Hi," he said, walking toward her with an easy smile. "I hope you don't mind me waiting here. I wanted to see if we could talk." Her grip tightened around the grocery bag in her hand. "Talk? About what?" He gestured vaguely toward the street. "Can we sit somewhere? Maybe grab a coffee?" She blinked at him, completely baffled. This man, who looked like he belonged in some high-rise office or fancy restaurant, was asking her, a struggling single mom in threadbare clothes, to have coffee with him. It felt surreal, almost like a scene from a movie. And yet there he was, standing right in front of her, looking perfectly sincere. I don't understand," she finally managed to say. "Why are you here?" His expression softened. "Let's just say I haven't been able to stop thinking about our meeting on the train. You seemed, well, overwhelmed, like you're carrying more than anyone should have to. I wanted to check in, make sure you're okay." Her defenses went up immediately. People offering help usually came with strings attached, or worse, ulterior motives. She'd learned the hard way not to trust easily. "I'm fine," she said quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Thanks for asking, but I've got everything under control." He studied her face for a moment, clearly seeing through her lie. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, if you say so. But if you ever need anything at all, you can reach out to me. Here's my card." He handed her a sleek business card embossed with gold lettering. She glanced down at it briefly before shoving it into her pocket without really looking. The last thing she needed was to get tangled up in whatever this was. "Thank you," she muttered awkwardly, stepping past him toward the door. "Good night." As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, her mind raced. Who was this guy? Why did he care about her? And why did his kindness feel so unsettling? She told herself not to overthink it. He was probably just a wealthy do-gooder, trying to ease his conscience by helping random strangers. Still, she couldn't deny the tiny flicker of curiosity burning inside her. Over the next few days, that flicker grew brighter. She found herself pulling out the business card he'd given her and staring at it during quiet moments. His name was printed neatly across the top, Alexander Kane. Below it, his title, CEO of Kane Technologies. She recognized the company. It was one of the biggest tech firms in the city, known for its cutting-edge innovations and lucrative deals. This revelation only deepened her confusion. Why would someone like him, a billionaire CEO with a jet-setting lifestyle, bother following up with someone like her? What could he possibly gain from helping a struggling single mother? Curiosity eventually got the better of her. One evening, after tucking Elijah into bed, she decided to send him a text. It was short and tentative, just a simple hi to test the waters. To her surprise, he replied almost instantly. Hey, glad you reached out. How are you holding up? She stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Finally, she typed back, I'm surviving. Thanks for checking in. They exchanged a few more messages, casual and friendly. He asked about her work, her son, her dreams. She answered honestly, though cautiously, still wary of revealing too much. Despite her reservations, she found herself enjoying their conversations. He listened, not the way people usually did, nodding politely while waiting for their turn to speak, but truly listened, as if her words mattered. One night, after a particularly rough day at work, she poured her frustrations into a message. Sometimes I wonder if things will ever get better, she admitted. It feels like I'm stuck running in circles, working harder and harder, but never getting anywhere. His reply came a few minutes later. You deserve better than circles. Let me help you break free. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure how to respond. Help sounded nice in theory, but accepting it meant opening herself up to vulnerability and risk. Yet deep down, she knew she couldn't keep going like this forever. Something had to change. What exactly are you offering? She asked cautiously. A job, he replied simply. Not cleaning floors or serving coffee. A real position at my company. Stable pay, benefits, flexible hours so you can take care of your son. Think about it. Her breath caught in her throat. A job at his company? It sounded too good to be true. Too easy. Too perfect. You barely know me, she typed back. Why would you offer me something like that? His response was immediate. Because everyone deserves a chance to succeed. And because I think you're stronger than you realize. For the first time in years, tears welled up in her eyes, not from exhaustion or frustration, but from hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. That maybe this stranger's kindness wasn't just a fleeting gesture, but the start of something bigger. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she sat there staring at her phone, letting his words sink in. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to dream, not of survival, but of thriving, of breaking, free from the cycle of struggle and building a better future for herself and her son. The decision to accept the job offer wasn't easy. The young mother spent days wrestling with doubt and fear, replaying every possible scenario in her head. What if she failed? What if people judged her for getting a position they thought she didn't earn? Worst of all, what if this was some elaborate trick, a way for Alexander to toy with her life before walking away? But then she looked at Elijah, sleeping peacefully in his crib, and remembered why she worked so hard every day. She wanted more for him, not just survival, but opportunities. Opportunities she never had growing up. If there was even a sliver of a chance that this could be her ticket to something better, she owed it to herself and her son to take it. So she texted Alexander back. Okay, she wrote simply. I'll try. His response came quickly. You won't regret it. Her first day at Kane Technologies felt surreal. She walked into the sleek glass building, clutching her bag tightly as she navigated through polished marble floors and rows of expensive furniture. Everyone around her seemed to exude confidence, dressed in tailored suits and designer outfits. Meanwhile, she wore her best pair of jeans and a blouse she'd bought on clearance years ago. Alexander greeted her warmly, introducing her to the team as their new administrative assistant. Some of her co-workers smiled politely, while others barely acknowledged her presence. She couldn't blame them. She stuck out like a sore thumb in this world of privilege and polish. But she reminded herself why she was here, to prove she belonged. Her desk was small but tidy, tucked away in a corner near Alexander's office. Her tasks were straightforward at first, answering phones, organizing files, scheduling meetings. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was miles away from scrubbing toilets or dodging rude customers at the diner. For the first time in years, she went home without aching feet or grease-stained clothes. Still, the transition wasn't smooth. There were moments when she felt completely out of place. During lunch breaks, her coworkers gathered in the cafeteria, chatting about vacations, investments, and restaurants she'd never heard of. She usually ate alone at her desk, nibbling on a sandwich she'd packed from home. Conversations about stock portfolios and luxury cars might as well have been in another language. They meant nothing to her. But Alexander noticed. He made an effort to include her, inviting her to meetings and encouraging her to share her thoughts. At first, she hesitated, afraid of saying the wrong thing or looking foolish, but slowly she began to open up. To her surprise, her ideas weren't dismissed, they were valued. People listened when she spoke, and sometimes they even acted on her suggestions. One afternoon, Alexander called her into his office. "How are you settling in?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. She shrugged, trying to play it cool. "It's different. I'm still learning." He smiled knowingly. "You're doing great. Better than most would in your shoes." His words gave her a small boost of confidence, but she knew she couldn't rely solely on his encouragement. If she wanted to succeed, she needed to push herself harder. That evening, after putting Elijah to bed, she opened her laptop and enrolled in online courses. Business administration, communication skills, time management, anything that could help her grow. She stayed up late into the night, studying between feedings and diaper changes. Sleep became a luxury she could no longer afford, but she didn't care. Every lesson brought her one step closer to breaking free from the struggles that had defined her life for so long. As weeks turned into months, she started noticing subtle shifts, not just in her work, but in how others treated her. Her coworkers began including her in conversations, asking for her input during brainstorming sessions. Even the receptionist, who had initially seemed frosty, warmed up to her over shared cups of coffee. Then came the moment that changed everything. Kane Technologies was working on a major project, a partnership with a global client that required seamless communication across multiple departments. The challenge? Streamlining the process so everyone stayed on the same page without drowning in emails and meetings. It was a problem no one had been able to solve satisfactorily. During a team meeting, Alexander turned to her unexpectedly. "What do you think? Any ideas?" Her heart raced. She hadn't prepared for this. All eyes were on her now, waiting for her response. For a split second, panic gripped her throat. Then she took a deep breath and spoke. "I've been thinking," she began cautiously. "Maybe we could create a centralized platform where everyone can update their progress in real time. Like a dashboard that shows deadlines, tasks, and updates, all in one place. It would save time and reduce confusion." The room fell silent. She braced herself for laughter or dismissal, but instead, Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually a really good idea," he said. "Let's explore it further." Encouraged by his support, she dove into the project with everything she had. She collaborated with the IT department, sketched out designs, and presented prototypes to the team. It wasn't easy, there were setbacks and moments of self-doubt, but she refused to give up. Slowly, her vision began taking shape. When the platform launched, it was a game changer. Productivity soared, and the client praised Kane Technologies for its efficiency. The CEO himself singled her out during a company-wide meeting, crediting her idea as the key to their success. "You've proven yourself beyond measure," Alexander told her afterward. "This is just the beginning." For the first time in her life, she felt proud, not just of surviving but of thriving. People respected her. They valued her contributions. And for someone who had spent years feeling invisible, it was a revelation. But not everyone was happy about her rise. Rumors started swirling around the office. Some whispered that she only got the job because of Alexander, implying there was something inappropriate going on between them. Others accused her of using her hard luck story to manipulate sympathy. The gossip stung, especially since none of it was true. She hadn't slept her way to the top or manipulated anyone. She'd earned her place through sheer determination and hard work. Alexander confronted the issue head-on during a staff meeting. "I hired her because she's talented," he said firmly. "If anyone has a problem with that, they can come talk to me directly." His defense silenced the critics, for a while at least, but it also deepened the bond between them. He trusted her, believed in her, and stood by her side when others doubted her. In return, she admired his integrity and humility. Despite his wealth and power, he remained grounded, always remembering where he came from. Their relationship evolved beyond boss and employee. They spent hours talking about their dreams, fears, and past struggles. She learned about his childhood, how he grew up poor, working odd jobs to put himself through school. He marveled at her resilience, how she juggled work, motherhood, and education without complaint. They found solace in each other's company, forming a connection neither of them had anticipated. Yet, amidst the growing closeness, she couldn't ignore the nagging voice in the back of her mind. Was it smart to let her guard down? To trust someone so completely? Love wasn't part of her plan, not yet. But as the months passed, she realized she couldn't fight what her heart already knew. This journey wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about finding strength, purpose, and maybe, just maybe, a love that could weather any storm. The young mother's journey at Kane Technologies was becoming more than just a job. It was turning into a transformation. With each passing week, she grew not only in confidence but also in her ability to navigate the corporate world. Her idea for the centralized communication platform had earned her recognition across the company, and suddenly, people who once ignored her were seeking her advice. But with that newfound attention came challenges she hadn't anticipated. Rumors about her relationship with Alexander continued to swirl, despite his public defense of her. Some coworkers whispered behind her back, speculating that she must have done something to win his favor. Others accused her of using her struggles as a sob story to climb the ladder. The gossip hurt, but it also fueled her determination to prove them wrong. She wasn't here because of sympathy or manipulation. She was here because she worked harder than anyone else. Alexander noticed how the rumors affected her. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, he found her sitting, alone at her desk, staring blankly at her computer screen. He knocked gently on the doorframe of her cubicle. "You okay?" he asked softly. She looked up, startled. For a moment she debated brushing him off with a quick, "I'm fine." But the exhaustion in her eyes betrayed her. "It's hard," she admitted finally. "People talk like I don't belong here, like I didn't earn this." Alexander pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "You did earn it," he said firmly. "Every single bit of it. Don't let their words define you. You've already proven yourself 10 times over." His words brought tears to her eyes, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. It wasn't just his belief in her that mattered. It was the fact that he truly understood what it felt like to be doubted. Growing up poor, he'd faced his own share of judgment and prejudice. That shared experience created a bond between them that went deeper than any title or position. Despite the challenges, her life began to change in ways she never imagined. The stable income allowed her to move out of her cramped apartment and into a safer neighborhood with better schools for Elijah. She no longer worried about skipping meals or stretching every dollar until it snapped. For the first time in years, she could breathe a little easier. But the most surprising change was happening within her. She started dreaming again, not just about surviving, but about thriving. Late at night, while Elijah slept peacefully, she studied tirelessly, determined to excel in her online courses. She wanted to learn everything she could about business, leadership, and innovation. Every new skill she acquired made her feel stronger, more capable. Alexander encouraged her growth every step of the way. He introduced her to mentors, recommended books, and even invited her to high-level meetings where she could observe how decisions were made. At first, she felt intimidated, sitting among executives who spoke in jargon she barely understood. But over time, she began to find her voice. She offered insights during discussions, challenged assumptions when necessary, and earned the respect of those around her. One day, after a particularly successful presentation, Alexander pulled her aside. "You're ready for more," he said simply. "What do you mean?" she asked, confused. "I mean you're wasting your potential stuck in an admin role. I want to promote you to project manager. You'll lead teams, oversee initiatives, and have a real impact on the company's direction." Her heart skipped a beat. A promotion? To manager? It sounded too good to be true. "Are you sure?" she stammered. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of responsibility." "You are," he insisted, "and I'll be here to support you every step of the way." For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe she was capable of greatness, not because someone told her so, but because she'd proven it to herself through sheer grit and determination. As her career flourished, her personal life began to shift as well. Her friendship with Alexander deepened, evolving into something neither of them had planned for. They spent hours talking late into the night about their dreams, fears, and the scars left by their difficult pasts. She admired his humility, his refusal to let success change who he was at his core, and he marveled at her resilience, her ability to rise above circumstances that would have broken most people. Their connection became impossible to ignore. One evening after a long day at work, they found themselves walking together through the quiet streets near the office. The city lights twinkled overhead, casting a soft glow on the pavement. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't met on that train?" Alexander asked suddenly. She smiled faintly. "All the time. I probably wouldn't be here right now." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "And I wouldn't have met someone as incredible as you." Her breath caught in her throat. She knew what he was saying, but it scared her. Love wasn't part of her plan, not yet. Could she risk opening her heart to someone, knowing how fragile trust could be? "I'm not the same person I was back then," she whispered. "I don't know if I can give you what you deserve." "You already have," he replied, taking her hand in his. "Just by being yourself." In that moment, she realized she didn't need to be perfect to love or to be loved. All she needed was courage. The courage to let someone in, to believe that happiness wasn't something reserved for other people. Their relationship blossomed quietly, away from prying eyes and judgmental whispers. They kept things professional, at work, focusing on their responsibilities and maintaining boundaries. Outside of work, they built a life together, a life filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the joy of watching Elijah grow up surrounded by love. Elijah adored Alexander, calling him Uncle Alex and tugging at his tie whenever he visited their home. Watching the two of them play together, she saw a future she'd never dared to imagine. A future where she didn't have to struggle alone, where her son could look up to a man who treated them both with kindness and respect. But even as her personal life improved, she refused to lose sight of her goals. She continued studying, earning certifications, and expanding her knowledge. With Alexander's support, she enrolled in a part-time MBA program, determined to build a foundation for her own dreams. She wanted to start her own business someday, one that would empower women like her, women who had been told they weren't enough, only to prove the world wrong. Years passed, and the young mother who once fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder became a force to be reckoned with. She rose through the ranks at Kane Technologies, eventually becoming one of the youngest executives in the company's history. Her innovative ideas transformed processes, increased efficiency, and earned her accolades from colleagues and clients alike. When Elijah started school, he proudly told his classmates that his mom was a big boss. She laughed at his description, but inside she swelled with pride. She had come so far, from cleaning floors to leading teams, and she owed it all to the strength she discovered within herself and the man who believed in her when no one else did. One evening, at a company gala, she stood on stage accepting an award for Employee of the Year. Tears streamed down her face as she thanked Alexander for giving her a chance when she least expected it. "You didn't just give me a job," she said, looking directly at him. "You gave me a future." As the audience erupted into applause, Alexander watched her with a smile, knowing their journey was far from over. Together, they had proven that sometimes the greatest rewards in life come not from climbing higher, but from reaching back to lift others up. The young mother's life had transformed in ways she never thought possible. From the days of struggling to make ends meet, she now stood on a stage at Kane Technologies' annual gala, holding an award for Employee of the Year. The room was filled with applause, but her eyes were fixed on one person, Alexander. He sat in the front row, his proud smile lighting up his face. She took a deep breath and began her acceptance speech. "I never imagined I'd be standing here tonight," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "When I first walked into this building, I felt completely out of place. I didn't think I belonged here. But someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That person is Alexander Kane." She paused, glancing at him again before continuing. "You didn't just give me a job, you gave me hope. You showed me that no matter where you come from, you can rise above it if someone gives you a chance. And now I want to pay that forward." Her words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. For Alexander, they struck a chord he hadn't expected. He realized how much he admired her, not just for her talent or determination, but for her heart. She wasn't content with achieving success for herself. She wanted to lift others up too. After the event, Alexander approached her privately. They stood together on the balcony overlooking the city skyline, the lights twinkling like stars below them. "You've done amazing things," he said, leaning against the railing, "but I know you're not done yet. What's next for you?" She hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I've been thinking about starting my own business. Something that helps women like me. Women who are trying to break free from tough situations. Maybe a platform where they can learn skills, find resources, and connect with mentors." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "That's a great idea, and I'd like to help you get it off the ground." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Really? You'd do that?" "Of course," he replied. "You've already proven you can succeed. Now it's time to take the next step." His support meant everything to her. With his guidance, she began working on her dream project during evenings and weekends. It wasn't easy balancing her full-time job, motherhood, and entrepreneurship, but she refused to give up. Every late night spent drafting plans, every early morning brainstorming ideas. It all brought her closer to creating something meaningful. As months passed, her business idea gained traction. She partnered with local organizations to provide training programs for underprivileged women, teaching them skills like coding, graphic design, and financial literacy. Slowly, the platform grew into a community, a safe space where women could share their stories, seek advice, and celebrate victories, no matter how small. Elijah watched his mom's journey with wide-eyed admiration. Now 8 years old, he loved hearing about the women she helped. "You're like a superhero, Mom," he told her one evening as they sat together on the couch. She laughed softly, ruffling his hair. "Not a superhero, buddy. Just someone who knows what it feels like to need help and wants to give it back." Meanwhile, her relationship with Alexander continued to deepen. Their bond had evolved beyond friendship and professional respect. It had become a partnership built on trust, shared values, and unconditional support. One chilly autumn evening, after a long day of meetings and planning sessions, They found themselves walking hand in hand through a park near her home. "I've been thinking," Alexander said suddenly, stopping under a tree, illuminated by golden streetlights. "About us." Her heart skipped a beat. "What about us?" He turned to face her, his expression serious yet tender. "You've changed my life in ways I never expected. You've reminded me of why I started this company, to make a difference. And now I want to spend the rest of my life making a difference with you." Before she could respond, he knelt down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple yet elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the nervous excitement in his eyes. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stared at him, overwhelmed by emotion. For so long she had guarded her heart, afraid of being hurt or disappointed. But standing there, looking into his sincere gaze, she knew she had nothing to fear. This was love. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and unwavering. "Yes," she whispered, smiling through her tears. "Of course, yes." Their wedding was a modest affair, attended by close friends, family, and colleagues who had watched their journey unfold. Elijah served as the ring bearer, grinning ear to ear as he walked down the aisle. The ceremony was heartfelt and intimate, a reflection of the love and respect they shared. In the years that followed, their lives intertwined even further. Her business flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for countless women striving to build better futures for themselves and their families. Alexander continued to lead Kane Technologies, but he also invested heavily in initiatives aimed at empowering marginalized communities. Together, they proved that success isn't measured by wealth or titles. It's measured by the impact you have on others. Elijah grew up surrounded by love, ambition, and opportunities his mother had fought so hard to provide. He excelled in school, inspired by the example set by both his parents. On the rare occasions when he struggled, he remembered his mom's words. "We don't give up. We keep going, no matter what." Looking back on her journey, the young mother often marveled at how far she'd come. From the cold train ride where she accidentally leaned on a stranger's shoulder to building a life filled with purpose and love, every step had shaped her into the woman she was today. She learned that life doesn't always follow a straight path. It twists, turns, and sometimes takes you places you never expected. But if you hold on to hope, stay true to yourself, and surround yourself with people who believe in you, anything is possible. One evening, as she tucked Elijah into bed, he looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Mom, do you think dreams really come true?" She kissed his forehead gently. "Yes, sweetheart. Dreams do come true, but you have to work for them, and you have to believe in yourself, even when it feels impossible." As she turned off the light and closed his bedroom door, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her story wasn't just about survival, it was about resilience, courage, and the power of human connection. And it all began with a single act of kindness on a crowded train.